Trailblazers Inc., we feel it's important to share the stories of others that share our common goal. Today, our podcast is with one of our allies who also wants to increase the number of people considering a career in the trades. I hope you enjoy today's podcast. Thank you. Thank you for joining us for today's podcast. With me today is Josh Zolin. Now he has a long list of things I'm going to read from this sheet of paper. So you are a food service technician. I'm trying to do this in order. You are the CEO of Windy City Equipment. You are also the author of Blue is the New White, which you also have a podcast under the same name. You are a husband and father of two. So that is wonderful. Thank you for joining me today. We have spoken before on your podcast, but for those who have not seen your podcast, we're going to really talk about it a lot today. And could you please just start by giving us a little bit of your story, introduce yourself and tell us how you got to where you are now.
Yeah, absolutely. So first off, thank you so much for having me on the show, Jill. It's great to be able to return the favor because you did so well on my show, and I just appreciate it.
No problem.
So as for me, how I got to where I am today, it's funny. Every time I tell this story, it feels like it should get easier, but it doesn't. It's a bit of an unconventional path, I guess you could say. Uh, I'll give you the shorter version, and you just let me know if you want me to elaborate on anything. So I was born in California, and when I was young, I moved out to Kenosha, Wisconsin, which is where I spent most of my youth on a farm in Kenosha, Wisconsin. Um, but my entire family was actually in the stunt industry, setting themselves on fire, jumping off buildings, dating all the way back to my grandfather, who was in the industry for a very long time. That's what I thought I was going to do when I grew up. I didn't think that I was going to be in the trades. I didn't think that I was going to be working on food service equipment. I didn't even know what that was. I would eat at restaurants, but I didn't know how they cooked the food. I didn't care. So all through high school, that's kind of what I was known for, that and being very vocal about not wanting to go to college, which to the dismay of all my teachers and guidance counselors and stuff. But at the time, I was going to be a stuntman. So there's only a couple of schools in the country that teach that, and I ran one of them. So that was my path, and that's what I did right after high school. When my mom and my dad split, my dad was in the stunt industry also, but he got out of the industry because there was a lot of travel involved, and it was getting in the way of some of the time that we were able to spend together. So he got out of the industry and went into the basically equipment repair industry. He was a foreman of a bakery in Chicago for a long time. And so when I graduated high school, he moved out to Arizona and started doing this for himself, fixing restaurant equipment. Meanwhile, I went out to California to continue pursuing my stunt business because that's kind of what made me cool, right? That's what I was doing. That's all I knew. And it didn't take long. I think about 2 years or so before I kind of got fed up with that industry. And I was between say 19 and 21. I think I was in LA doing that, and formidable years. So I was still trying to kind of find uh, what I considered to be successful and all of that. And my life at the time just didn't line up. So called him up one day and said, "Hey, I don't know what you do, but I want to come out and work with you. And on one condition that you teach me the business and we grow it as much as we can." And which was great, right? Because with my parents being split, I didn't get a chance when I was younger to spend a ton of time with my dad. So this was a good opportunity to do that and also learn a trade. So I hung up all of the fancy Hollywood stuff and the red carpets and all of that, and moved out to Arizona to work with him. And it was just him at the time. It wasn't like, hey, let's call Windy City. It was, hey, let's call Joel. He was the only one in the company. So he taught me the ropes from the ground up. He's very old school, right? So, he was very clear about me having to turn wrenches before I did anything else in the company, which was fine. At the time, it wasn't my cup of tea, right? At the time, it wasn't something that I ever thought I would be doing. But I'm so glad that I did it. I did that for I was in the field for probably about 10 years. And then I started to learn the back end, the dispatching and the books. And my dad will tell you all day long that he's not a businessman, right? He's a mechanic. And so, and I obviously never went to college. So my expertise was limited as well on the business landscape. I've always had this entrepreneurial spirit. I was always the kid selling, the most in the fundraisers, and I liked the art of selling and my odd jobs in between everything. I was always, a sales associate or something. So that was kind of, becoming ingrained in me as well. But I found a love for reading at that point, which is crazy, right? Because you couldn't have paid me to read a book in high school. And but I'm so glad that I did that too, because it was such an efficient way to learn for me. So I read everything I could. Um, there wasn't much on that industry, right? That industry is very niche. So there wasn't much I could read on the industry, but I was able to learn basic business acumen and stuff like that by reading books and talking to people and networking and stuff like that. So fast forward a little bit, we started out at his garage and just started bringing on employees, and there was a lot to learn there too. Uh, and we built our customer base up pretty much all by word of mouth. We didn't do any marketing or advertising or anything like that. You should have seen the website. It was like this one page, hey, we do really good work, but it was all
Awesome.
word of mouth. Yeah, which I still to this day I think is the best form of advertising, right? Because it's people trusting people. And so from there it kind of spiraled as we started bringing on technicians and bringing on more employees. That's when I started to see the opportunity, the real opportunity, and what it was that we did, and really in the skilled trades in general, because I didn't know what that was. Nobody taught me that in high school, right? It was, you're not going to college, so you must be stupid. I don't know, but that's kind of the feeling that I got. But once I understood, and I saw these people, coming into our company, and we're competing with uh, their previous employer and their other employers in the area similar to what we do. I got to understand, number one, how much money they make. Number two, how good the benefits are. Number three, how talented they actually are. And so, I immersed myself in this business and the people in it for a very long time. We grew the business, landed on the Inc. 5000 list, fastest growing companies in America 3 times in a row now, 18, 19, and 20. And then I wrote the book. Obviously, that's what kind of led me to write the book, is that, how could an opportunity like this exist and me not know anything about it, me never be taught anything about it. um, and with the lack of resources available, I just thought, it was actually my wife, because I was like, hey, there's no books I can read on this, and she was like, well, you always said you wanted to write a book. I was like, all right, well, I guess I did say that. So that's what led to it. And the book is geared toward the high school demographic, to kind of bridge that gap, right, and at least present them another opportunity, because I don't know, probably 80% of high school students don't know what it is they want to do for the rest of their life. So, and they don't have to go into the skilled trades, of course, but they can't make an educated decision without having all the options in front of them, right? And the truths. So, yep, I did that, and then the podcast followed suit. Just because it was so in line with everything, and it gives me the opportunity to speak with tradespeople like you all over the world, and hear their success stories and why they love what they do, and really presents a good platform to highlight the skilled trades.
Absolutely, and I'm so glad that you wrote the book. I'm going to hold it up. So I've got all kind of markers in here, because I'm gonna talk about a few things that you've written in here. I love this book. So it's called Blue is the New White: The Best Path to Success No One Told You About Until Now. I love it. As soon as we're done this podcast, I'm marching it to the basement and I'm giving it to my son, because I told him, he was like, Mom, you never read. We have a lot in common, because I don't like reading either. He's like, what are you reading? And I'm like, a book that you're going to read right after I'm done. So, but I actually was thinking this morning too, I'm going to buy 2 more of these. Or actually, this was a gift from you. I shouldn't say that I bought this and you autographed it for me. So thank you very much. I love it. But I'm going to buy 2 of these and I'm going to take them to my son's school. And I might actually continue that trend, because I'd like to go and start speaking to schools as well about the trades. I'm in Alberta. We're not even anywhere near each other, you and I, but we have a lot in common because we have this same belief that they're not offered these opportunities. I think things are slightly improving now, but word's got to get out there. For, I can relate to you on so many levels. I didn't like school either. I didn't want to go to college. I wanted to get paid for all that hard work, and I don't like sitting at a desk learning. I'll learn hands-on. I love that. My parents also were not together. They divorced when I was young, I think 5 or something. But my mom and dad got back together when I was 17, which is kind of strange. My mom always says my dad took the garbage out and didn't come back for 12 years. So I didn't grow up with the trades right in front of me. But we have a lot of tradespeople in my family. I'm 4th generation, so you know I saw a lot of it. I knew it was a really great thing. Yeah, so I think that the stigma of working in the trades has to change. I went through your book again this morning. I spent all day. This day has all been about you and your book so far for me today. So I don't know if your ears were ringing or anything like that, but that was me.
I thought I
But
felt something.
you talk a lot about the wages and things like that, and I used to say that I don't talk a lot about the wages, but I'm going to change that because you make a very good point that people do want to make an income, especially career wise, like their whole life, that brings success to them. You talk a lot about success and what that looks like to different people in your book as well. Yeah, I do think it's really important to show the wages and stuff like that. Apprenticeship where you are is a lot different than apprenticeship here. So for us, we go to school 2 months every year, and then our program, me being a welder, my program is 3 years. So you have to work 1,560 hours per year. You'd go to school for the 2 months, then you're awarded your first year. So whether you're union or not, and you do talk a little bit about that in the book as well, that's how it works here. And I think even in the States, each state is different. And in Canada, it's you can be a welder in Ontario, and not be journeyman certified. You can get a license or something like that. It's quite confusing. So it varies all over the place. But taking a trade, you will have that good income. You will start a journey that it opens so many doors, so many
Oh,
doors.
absolutely.
And you talk a lot about that in the book. So let's talk about the book for a while, because I do have some, like I said, I've got some things marked in the book that I'd like to discuss. So I hope you don't mind me quoting your book. I
No,
won't give it
absolutely
all
not. And
away.
actually, if you don't mind, I would like to interject on something that you
Sure.
said,
Yeah.
which is great. And because fun fact about the book and me, I never used to talk about the wages either. And then I was talking to somebody who said, if you want to gain the attention of the youth, you need 2 things. You need something to get their attention, and then you need something to keep their attention. So after looking and doing all this research, I found that the wages get people's attention just because a lot of people don't know. But then what keeps their attention are all the intangibles that I talk about in the book.
Yes. Yes. No, yeah, that's a good point. It's a good point. And we have to realize that these are different generations, right? Like the people that I worked with early on always said, tradespeople that do it for the money aren't happy. But I think when you kind of flip it and look at it from a different point of view, when you have a home that you have paid for, that you are actually able to buy, and you have a vehicle you like that doesn't break down all the time, and you have food in your fridge, and you can have a family and actually go to concerts, well, when COVID's over, you can go to concerts and do fun things, that brings the happiness. So yes, of course you want a job that brings you a good wage, right? Okay, so very first thing I have marked here is, remember, no matter what career you choose, true success is only earned by putting in hard work, getting up after countless failures, and doing shit you don't want to do. And that's true. And you will do that in any job that you have, no matter if you're a lawyer, no matter if you're a doctor. That is very, very, very true. Any comments?
Yeah, I think that's one of the single most important things for anybody to remember. And you hit the nail on the head, Jill. It's not just in the skilled trades. It's anything that you want to do. If you're not willing to put in that work, if that's a deterrent for you, you've got bigger problems. And I'm just laying it out on the line. That's the fact of the matter. And then you also have to be willing to fail. And I think that's where the school system, at least in the states that I've noticed, kind of doesn't do a great job, right? Because everybody is punished for failure, and I remember this vividly when I was in high school, right? Failure was the worst possible thing that you could do in school, but real life doesn't work that way, right? Real life is failure after failure after failure. I think it was Thomas Edison that said, I've never failed. I've only found 10,000 ways that didn't work. And that's the truth. Because as long as you get up, and my dad said this too, as long as you get up, you haven't failed. As long as you keep pushing forward, you haven't failed. As long as you don't make that mistake again, you haven't
Mhm.
yet failed. So it's stuff like that is incredibly important, and that's so I really wanted to make sure I put an emphasis on that in the book.
Absolutely. And I think when you make mistakes or you do something incorrectly, you learn from it and you don't ever forget that, usually, right? Especially if usually we're very embarrassed when we do something wrong. That's like a little bit of trauma there. You're like, oh, well, I'll make sure I don't do that again, right? Okay, and
Yeah,
next,
absolutely.
yeah, next thing I have marked here is never be afraid to think big. I love that. I do. I
Yeah,
do. You
yeah,
think big. I
that's a
mean, look at
big part.
look at what you did with the company.
Yeah, and that's been a personal motto of mine for a very long time, and it just makes sense to me because uh, I think I read it in a book somewhere. I don't remember exactly where I got that phrase. I mean, it's you see it just about everywhere, but
Mhm.
it really resonates with me because when you think about it, right, and when you get to the heart of it, the real question is why not? Why wouldn't you think big, right? What's the benefit of thinking small? So
Mhm.
you can easily accomplish something. Well, there you go again, trying to avert that hard work.
Yeah.
There's no downside in thinking big. If you don't hit your mark, you've still achieved more than if you were to think small. And that's really the but I mean, I attribute that mindset to everything that I've accomplished with the company, and I still to this day. I mean, it's people that know me, people that are close to me, say that I'm insatiable. When it comes to that kind of stuff, which can be a blessing and a curse. I understand that, but that's the way that I'm wired, and I think that even if people aren't inherently wired that way, it's a good practice, and because you'll always achieve more the bigger you think.
Well, and that's very true. Very, very true. The whole why not? I mean, so many people are afraid to take that jump, to take that leap. I mean, personally, I've done a lot of things outside of just being a welder. But I've seen a lot of people like, I mean, I've started a few companies. My heart really wasn't in it 100%. It was more like a side thing for me, a side hustle to do fun artistic stuff on the side. Anyways, yeah, why not? Why not? See, I've always said I can't is not in my vocabulary. There's a difference between
Yeah.
I don't want to, I don't want to climb on the roof. Thank you. That is not something I want to do. Can I? Yeah, probably, but I won't. But I don't like it when people say I can't. That's an excuse. Yeah, you can. You might have to work a little harder to make it happen. You may have some challenges, some obstacles, but yeah, you can. Yeah, you can. All right. So next note I have here is the trades have so many benefits besides money. The chance to help people, challenging, rewarding work, which means less burnout, a flexible work-life balance, health benefits, travel, and unique experiences, and the opportunity to learn valuable skills. It's a
Yeah.
mouthful, but it says a lot, doesn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. And there's a couple of things there, that raise some eyebrows. Um, I've gotten the question before, hey, well, you say hard work is very important, but then you also mention work-life balance. And so, to clarify that, you work your way toward the work-life balance, right? It's never going to be balanced when you first start out because you have to put in your dues. You have to do that. Um, and again, not just in the skilled trades, right? In anything that you want to do, you're always going to need to put forth that effort. And usually that effort requires you to go above and beyond the normal day to day 40 hours a week or whatever it is. I mean, when I first started out, I was working with my dad, right? I was working at Windy City from I think it was like 5 a.m. to 6 p.m., right? Something like that. And then I would deliver pizzas from 7 p.m. to 11 p.m. But then when I got home, before I went to bed, I would sit on my living room floor and I would take the parts that I had replaced that day from this equipment in these restaurants, and I would take apart the parts on the floor of my living room, which my wife loved, by the way. Um, my dogs licking the grease off of it and stuff. Yeah, but that's how I learned, right? That's how I understood. Okay, I know now how this part works. I replaced it because I knew it was bad, but that doesn't mean I completely and utterly understand what it does or how it works. But taking it apart, putting it back together, understanding the sequence of operation, maybe why it failed, why it didn't. That was going above and beyond. And yeah, I mean, that took away time from myself. I didn't have kids at the time, so it didn't take away from time with my kids. But um, that's just the stuff that you have to do. But you work hard first, so you can work less hard later, if that makes sense.
Mhm.
So that's one of the things that I get asked a lot. So I figured I would just hit that one head on.
Yeah.
Unique experiences too. That's a lot of fun. I've got one story of um, a time Arizona, right? So there's this place at the bottom of the Grand Canyon called Phantom Ranch, and usually there's a 3 or 4 year wait list to get into this resort. It's a resort, right? And there's only two ways to get down. You have to go down the canyon by mule, or you have to go down by a helicopter to get into this resort. Well, they had a problem with their griddle, and we were the authorized service agent for their griddle. So one of my employees, had his hand up. I'll go. I'll do it. And he got to we were hoping for the helicopter, right? We didn't want anything more than a picture of a Windy City technician rappelling out of a helicopter, into a canyon. That would have just been, I'd still be using that photo to this day. But instead, I got a photo of him on a mule and his tool bag on another mule, going down the mountain, or going down the canyon. But it's just one of those things. He got to stay at this resort, and he's a food service technician, an equipment technician, and people don't understand that, a lot of times in these trades, and that's just one small example, right? I mean, as well as anyone that the trades can take you anywhere, out of the country, around the country, onto different continents, depending on what trade you do. I mean, there's just so many different things that people don't have any idea.
Yeah. Yeah, it's an exciting career. They think, it's boring and you're, laying and cleaning toilets or something. I don't know, changing out P traps that are plugged and it's not all that. I mean, we do get days that are not so much fun, but every job will be like that. And yeah, you do get to have some things are really exciting that travel. Here where I am, a lot of people travel to Fort McMurray. I don't know if you've ever heard of Fort McMurray. It's have been talked about a lot because of, oil and gas in Alberta. But I've never even been up there, but I did get to travel across the country and down into the States and overseas a bit with what I've done. So yeah, it opens a lot more doors for you too, joining the trades, right? Okay,
Absolutely.
so next, under people who don't know what they want to do, you say if you're uncertain, go into the trades. So can you elaborate a little bit on that? I could read the whole book, but it's better to hear it
Yeah.
from you.
No, you picked out some really good parts, really, really good areas to explain. So, yeah, as I alluded to before, I think that a lot of kids these days, a lot of high school kids, they just don't know what to do, right? They don't know what they want to do the rest of their life, and it's a big ask for somebody between the ages of 16 and 18 to ask them what they want to do for the majority of their life. I mean, that's not what I was focused on. I know that's not what my friends were focused on. Every once in a while, you'll get the kids that know they want to be a doctor, they know they want to be a lawyer, or what have you, or fireman, you know, but the majority of people I don't think know. And so they make this decision, and usually it's influenced by people who are trying to look out for them, the parents, their teachers, whatever, to go to college, right? Still not knowing what they want to do. And the explanation is, well, go take your core classes, get some credits, and you'll figure it out along the way. The problem is that costs money, right? And this every day that you spend not knowing what you want to do is digging you a hole deeper and deeper in debt. And that's a huge problem, because there's a very good chance that you could go through an entire 4 years, even get a degree, and maybe it was just you still don't know if you want to do that, and now you're kind of stuck, right? So that advice is, yeah, if you don't know what you want to do, college is always going to be there, but why not learn a practical life skill that's taught in the trades, whether that be an electrician, a plumber, HVAC tech, welding. All of this stuff can be used in all walks and all facets of life. And I can't say the same for a college degree, depending on what that's in. So
Mhm.
that's the premise behind that statement.
Yeah, and maybe I don't know. I don't want to think of this as bragging, but I used to say a long time ago that I wasn't a fan of school, and a lot of the people that graduated within my year went on to college and stuff like that, and they were left with these student loans, jobs they're unhappy. And with me, I actually was a waitress for a long time after I left school, but I joined the trades. I think I was about 24. I don't want to date myself here, but anyways, I think I was about 24 when I started the trades, and I didn't have loans. Back then, I didn't have to pay for school. I just had to pay for books, and then I was on employment insurance as for my income during the time that I was in school. So for me, I was making good money, and all my, people that I graduated with, they had all these student loans and stuff, and they were unhappy. And I thought, well, that I think that goes to show that the trades really are a good place to be. I mean, I had seen that in my family as well, right? But goes to show to my the people my age that it wasn't a bad place to be. People, I mean, especially me being a woman in the trade, they're like, what are you doing? Why would you even want to do that? You're going to be dirty and gross. And I mean, even when I picked my son up from school too, they used to look at me and think I was some sort of bomb because I'd be, a little bit dirty. Of course, I had clean clothes on. I don't, I'd leave my dirty coveralls and boots at work, but they'd give me these dirty looks. And I thought, honey, if you had any idea how much money
Yeah,
I made and how
yeah,
happy I am, I mean, melting
that's
metal, it
right.
just doesn't get any more fun than that in my books, you
Oh,
know?
absolutely. And I think this is a good time also to let your audience know that, when I'm talking about college and stuff like this, I'm really talking about the ROI. I'm not talking about the people that know exactly what they want to do
Yeah,
and know that they need a college education to do it. This is not a knock on college. This is a
yeah.
knock on, the stigma that surrounds it and the ROI that you can achieve.
Well, in the podcast that we did earlier, of course, I'm in my head. I'm assuming everybody has seen it, which they have not necessarily. Maybe they have. Well, they're going to have to go now and check it out. That's Blue is the New White podcast. It's on YouTube. Anyways, you and I talked about. I don't bash people that do go to school either. We still need those doctors, lawyers, nurses, and stuff like that. But where do doctors, lawyers, and nurses, etc., work? In places that the tradespeople build. So we
Yeah.
need both people. No, I don't knock college or anything like that. My son, of course, wants to follow in my footsteps because he's tried welding. He does enjoy it. He has seen, the good things that we have had in life. And of course, he asks me how much a rig welder makes and how much does a truck, how much do you have to pay for a truck? And I said, oh, go buy a secondhand one. He said, no, I don't want a secondhand one. I want a brand new one. Okay, well, there's your loan right there because mom's not buying one.
There you
Anyways,
go.
yes, the trades are a great place to be. So the next thing I have marked in the book is the trades are a great option for people who are looking for a career change later in life. So that's very true. Now I'm an instructor and I do teach adults. I don't teach the apprenticeship. I teach sort of basic welding courses and things like that. I teach high school students as well. A lot of the adults I have that come to the program are there by choice. They want to change their career or they haven't found a career yet. So I have had students that were near 50, and I think it's fantastic. We also find I have found a lot of my coworkers, you know, I don't know their history, but when you get to work with them and you get to talk to them more and more, they do have degrees in certain things that they just, when they got there, they just decided they didn't like it. It wasn't making them happy, so they joined the trades, made good money right away. They enjoy what they do. People like you and I like to work with our hands too, so I think that's kind of a catch there too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think I even mentioned in the book that it is, you know, it's a great career to get into no matter what age that you're at. And some people are afraid to do so. You know, some people are afraid because you have to realize that when you make that transition into the trades, you know, you are going to be, there's a good possibility you're giving up an already good income, you know, but it's about the quality of life. That's why you're making a change, right? So, you know, you still have to be willing to put in that work and put in those hours, you know, and things like that. That's not going to change whether you're 18 years old or 50 years old if you're just getting into an industry.
Exactly, exactly. And this is I didn't mean to do this on purpose, but we're ending my last note in here is, what are you waiting for? That goes in perfect order. What are you waiting for? So if anybody's thinking about getting into the trades, of course, get started. Go find a way to start. Find a neighbor, a relative, or a program, right? And get
Yeah.
started. But I want to hear more about now, when I was doing some research about you, you do a lot of public speaking. Now, tell me why you do the public speaking and what you get out of it.
Yeah. So I just recently got into, I shouldn't say recently, over the last few years, I've been doing a lot more speaking engagements, of course, up until 2020, which I think I had to cancel 4 of them. I really started to pick up steam before this year, and then COVID hit, and you know, speaking engagements were canceled indefinitely. So, but you know, it's weird. I think that a lot of kids, and I could be wrong about this, maybe it was just me, but I think a lot of kids have that dream, right? Of at some point in their life having the spotlight on them, being up on stage, saying something, doing something, or singing something meaningful, and having a room full of people just cheer and clap and applaud. That's really what it started out as. It was kind of a I don't want to say a selfish thing because I'm trying to give valuable information, but I've always wanted to experience that, you know. And the stunt business, when I was in the film industry, it's different, right? Because I'm not up in front of a bunch of people, I'm in front of a camera. So you know, now that I learned what I did through my journey in the skilled trades and writing the book and having a podcast and all these different things and this knowledge that I was gaining from so many different people, I just wanted the ability to share it. So I figured, you know, what the heck, I got nothing to lose, and tried it out. And I don't want to say that I'm fantastic at it. You know, I haven't done it as long as some of these other incredible speakers and stuff like that have, but I feel like I do have a natural ability to kind of get up and just talk to groups of people as a whole. You know, because I love being up there and looking at the expressions on their face. You know, and I've talked about a lot of different things, skilled trades, obviously. I've talked about a lot of industry specific things, you know, preventative maintenance agreements and customer relationships, you know, success, stuff like that. And it's just great because I feel like I'm able to contribute to a lot of people at one time. And then, you know, the icing on the cake is being able to physically interact with them while I'm doing it. Social media is one thing, podcasts are one thing. I can, you know, relate to you just fine because it's me and you talking right now, but your audience, I'd love to see their face. You know, I'd love to see their faces as they're listening to our conversation because I take a lot away from, you know, looking into people's eyes and you know, seeing what they're feeling, I guess you could say. So it's just one of those things. I like to do it. and hopefully we can get back to it soon.
Absolutely. And that was the basic reason why I started Trailblazers Inc. was because I think I keep getting pulled into these opportunities to speak about the trades, and I really think that it's really important. And I think being in person is the way to go. Now, of course, I just started Trailblazers Inc. like I don't know 4 months ago, not long ago. But that is my goal, is to go and speak to schools, anybody that will listen. And I think for me, it's important for me to be there in front of them because I'm a woman in the trades, which is a rarity. And I want people to know that if you're in an underrepresented group in the trades, whether it's new Canadians, immigrants, women in the trades, or anything in between, if your family is bugging you and insisting that you go to college, well, look at me. I mean, I did this. When I left school, I got into the trades, and I think that my story it's really important to share and be in person. I mean, through podcasts, I have done a lot of speaking engagements over podcasts, but that's not the way to go. I'm not good at public speaking though. As a welder, one of my favorite things was stick me in a corner, bring me the parts, and I'll weld them. I'm just in there in hiding. I don't like to be up on stage. That is a little terrifying for me. But so I can
You
relate
know,
to you to a certain degree. But yeah.
fun fact about me that not a lot of people know, um, is even though I grew up in front of the camera and I had aspirations to get up on stage, I'm inherently an introvert. I really I do it because I feel like I want to, but it's still very hard for me to do. I was always the shy kid growing up. I didn't like to talk to people or be the center of attention or anything like that. And people look at me like I'm crazy if I tell them that now because of, all the things that I do on social media and the speaking engagements and stuff like that. But it's definitely not a natural thing that comes to me. I can do it. I can be good at it, but I still I got that feeling in my gut every time I go up there.
Yeah, no, well, that's good. I'm glad I'm not the only one. I did take some public speaking courses, but that was before COVID hit, and it was just me and this woman I hired to kind of get me out of my shell and teach me calming techniques and stuff. And I haven't been able to put it to use because here I am. I'm at home. I'm okay here. I'm hiding, right? You have no idea if I have pajama pants on. How do you know, right? I could, I might. Anyways, yeah, that's a whole different thing, and I think all in all, you and I are both doing a lot to get the word out that the trades are a good, viable career, right? I mean, and
Yeah,
people need to hear that, and that's why I think you and I teaming together, you on my podcast, me on your podcast, is really great. I love your podcast, by the way. I listen
thank
to it
you.
as much as I can. I'm not a book reader, so this took me a little bit longer to knock down. But the podcast, when I'm driving, I put you in my ears, and it's good. I cruise. I just told you I went for a cruise in the mountains, and it was all about you the whole time. It was good. It was good. Anyways, so there's some other things that I want to ask you. Something that you asked me, so I'm kind of gonna reverse it, and I'm gonna ask you what success means to you.
I've been waiting for somebody to ask me this question.
Here I am.
um, yeah, I think we talked about it. Success changes for people, right? And so if you would have asked me what my definition of success was 10 years ago, it would have been different than it is today, especially now having two daughters. And I think after that happened, I mean, my definition of success changed overnight. The second that I held my first baby girl in my arms, I was just like, okay, well, now I got to rewrite everything. Because it's true. But success to me is being able to lay my head on the pillow at night and feel like I accomplished something that day. I always try to be better than I was the day before. That's what makes me feel like a success. But as far as like goals and stuff like that, what would make me feel successful down the road is being able to provide for my family, give them a good upbringing, keep them safe, even if that means building a house nice enough to where they don't ever go to a friend's house, all their friends come to our house. You know what I mean? I told my wife that. I said, you want a bigger house? That's fine, because then all of her friends will come here. We don't have to worry. Um, but but yeah, I mean that's really what it is for me, and it's hard too, right? Because and this isn't me gloating or anything like that, but I've been very fortunate to have accomplished a lot of the goals that I previously set for myself. So I'm constantly trying to figure out what the next goal is, but it's changing now, right? Like I mentioned, it was, hey, get that cool car, get that house, get those things, right? The material things. And now it's definitely changed to make sure that I'm at my kids' recitals, make sure that I'm home every night by 5 o'clock so I can eat dinner with my family. Make sure that I'm an early riser, so I usually leave the house before everybody wakes up, but at least be there at bedtime so I can read them a story. And I mean that's success to me, right? Because that's time that you can't get back.
Well, and success is very different for everybody, and it's ever evolving, right? It's always changing, right? And we do need the necessities like the reliable car and a nice home to live in and food in the fridge and that kind of thing. But I mean, you have lots of successes. You've done very well with the business. Your podcast is fantastic. I mean, I when I was stalking you, I guess we could call it, researching you earlier today, I found out that you were doing tutorials. So I think to me that says that there's a certain amount of pride that you take in the things that you do by sharing um, the tutorials to help other people. I think a big part of you is helping other people brings you uh, success within,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, that's definitely something I left out. I love to help people. I really want to inspire people to be better and to find that definition of success for themselves. I mean, that's a big reason I do the podcast too. And yeah, the tutorials, that's something I started back in 2013. Showing people how to do basic repairs and maintenance on equipment and stuff like that. And that's been amazing, right? I get requests and comments from all over the world of people saying, hey, your video saved my life, saved my business, or people are reaching out with questions saying, hey, how do you do this? Or can you do a tutorial video for that? I even got into doing blogs and like helping people revise their resumes and things like that. So yeah, I do. I get a lot of satisfaction from being able to help people and give good advice and inspire them to be better.
Right, and that you just answered sort of my next question was why do you do the podcast? Because you say right at the beginning of your podcast that they're not monetized. You don't make any money off of them. You're not sponsored in any way, so you're doing them just to help others, right? That's
Yeah.
another thing you're doing too. And same with me. I don't mine's not monetized, and I think people like you and I are going to hopefully change. I want to say we're going to change the world. I did read something in your book about being a modern day superhero. What's that all about? But
Yeah.
I hope that we can make changes, for the better for a lot of people that are listening.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's the goal, right? Especially, with the podcast and just being able to I mean, people deserve the truth if nothing else, right? And they deserve the truth of what the industry really is and not all of the stereotypes that they've come to understand, the perceptions that they've developed over the years. And there's a million different reasons for that, but the truth is just so much more and it's so much better, right? And I also love doing the podcast because it allows me to network and build relationships with new people, and that's just been incredibly beneficial for me. And I know that audience is growing. They like what I talk about and the people I think that I bring on the show.
Well, and to me, just in the back of my mind when I'm listening to your podcast, I always think, so this, hopefully you take some of the information and do Blue is the New White book, volume 2, because I think with all of that information, I just think it's fantastic because I've obviously heard a lot of your podcasts, right? And there's just little, even if you just took little bits of all of it and put it into a book and shared that, that's very inspiring too, right? I mean, I know
Yeah.
most kids are online and they do it that way. But still, I'm telling you, this book is fantastic. And I think kids, like a lot of kids, need this. I think this needs to be in my son's school library in the very least. And hopefully that's what they do with the book that I give them. Even the colorful words, maybe they can just put a little black marker.
That was a big topic of discussion with my publisher,
Yeah.
was the use of those words. And ultimately we decided on keeping those words in because I had a version where I took that all out, but at the end of the day, what it boiled down to is I remember being in high school and the teachers that made the most impact on me were the ones that spoke to me like I was an adult,
Yeah.
and I just thought that that was important. But I have gotten some pushback, admittedly, from some schools about that, which is
Yeah.
fair. I mean, I get it. I knew that was a possibility, but I didn't want to take away from the voice.
Well, and I think you're keeping it real.
Yeah.
I think that when you're speaking, when there are those colorful words in there, you're just speaking, you're yourself. And I think it's really very, it's good to be authentic. I just took some leadership courses, and being authentic is not that we're trying to convince anybody of anything. We're not being manipulative by sharing our stories of trades, but I think when you're real and you're true and you're speaking from the heart, it's more inspiring. I really do. So when I was reading those words, I thought, you know what, this is how you are. And when I teach, especially when I have high school students, I say to them, my shop mouth might come out a little bit, and not in an angry way. I might say shit. I might say F that or whatever.
Yeah.
It's just shop mouth. It's a trade thing, maybe. I don't know, but sometimes it happens. So
Sometimes
I like that it's
sometimes
there.
sentences just need that extra impact.
That little F bomb. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
A little F-bomb. That's awesome. So I only have a couple other things that I want to kind of discuss with you. And then uh, I'm just wondering if you have any advice for others that may be looking to join the trades.
Oh man, there's so much advice. there's there's so much I could say. Um, if what I would say is if anybody's considering it, if anyone is on the fence, just do it. Just do it because I've seen it the other way. I've seen it where, people say, maybe I'll do this, and then they don't end up doing it. At least try it. If you're on the fence between one, two, or three, or even four things, try them all. Whether that be trades, whether that be college, whether that be, driving for Uber, I don't know. But if you don't know if you like it, you're never going to know unless you do it.
Yeah.
And then the trades, there are so many different verticals inside the trade industry. I mean, you're almost bound to find something that you resonate with, right? And I think I even mentioned in the book, it's not all about dirty work. The trades need people in all different capacities. They need people, in the office, they need people in sales, they need people in management, they need people in the field, doing the work. Yeah, I mean, it's all encompassing, and the beautiful thing about it is once you have the fundamentals that the trades teach you, and that's another big thing in there, right? Is that certain people lay out the characteristics that you'd be a good fit for the trades, but you seldom hear what the trades actually develop in you if you don't have any of those traits, and so that's a big area of if you're uncertain, you go into the trades, you develop these characteristics, and then you can from there do anything that you want to do.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. Definitely. Um, the only last thing I have on my list of questions here is final remarks. Is there anything that we have not discussed that you'd like to discuss?
Oh man, Jill, you covered so much ground. It's quite impressive. No, I think we covered quite a bit. You know, off the top of my head, there's nothing specific. I guess I would just say again, really be true to yourself about what your definition of success is, because that's going to pave the way for the direction that you go. Even if that definition changes, you know, have the self-awareness to understand what that is, what it is now, what it's changing to, why it changed. because you got to follow it. And money isn't everything, right? It's the quality of life and the happiness at the end of the
Yeah.
day that really matter.
Absolutely, absolutely. And working in the trades does bring you that happiness. And like you say in the book, you don't have to work overtime if you don't want to. It is a good trade. The trades are a good source of income that brings benefits, especially when you start a family and you want those benefits and you want that extra bit of money to, you know, spoil the kids every once in a while, go on a family vacation, things like that. So it's not all about the money, no. And joining the trades opens a lot of doors, right? I mean, did you ever think you'd be doing a podcast and writing a book and you'd have your company, be as big and successful as it is? And you're not done yet, right? You're still chugging along,
Oh,
right?
barely
So
scraped the surface, if you ask me. And it's funny you mentioned that, and because you brought up my speaking engagements, and one of the things that I say a lot of times when I go on stage is, when I was young, I had aspirations of being on stage in front of a bunch of people with a bunch of lights pointed at me. Why in the world would I want to go into skilled trades then, right? As I'm in front of everyone. And so you're absolutely right. You have no idea what kind of doors in this day and age the skilled trades can open for anyone.
absolutely. Yeah, it's great. Okay, so I'm going to close out the podcast. I'll stop the recording shortly, but don't go anywhere. I want to talk to you afterwards.
All right.
So, if you're watching the podcast, you have to buy this book. Blue is the New White. The best path to success no one told you about until now. You can find it on Amazon. Also, go to your website, which is Blue is the New White, and check out the podcast. It's just an amazing podcast. I love it. Every single one I've seen, and I haven't seen them all. So, guess what I'm doing tonight? Today is just going to be Judge Zolin Day, I think. I'll just, I don't know. I'll put you on the TV and I'll make supper. It'll be all about you today.
There you go.
Anyways, thank you so very much for doing the podcast with me. I so appreciate you taking the time to do it. Thank you for having me on your podcast as well. So again, yes, thank you.
Thank you, Jill. I really appreciate being on your show and talking to you.